So I'll bet right now, you're probably wondering, where is Pastor Bob, and why is there a 10th grader standing in the pulpit? Pastor Bob, do you know there's a 10th grader standing in your pulpit? Admittedly, I might be here because of a little bit of nepotism. My name is Lauren Tyree, and most of you know my grandparents, Tom and Maxine Tyree. And if you know my grandparents, you know that they love service. Just like in our Bible reading from Acts taught us, it is more blessed to give than to receive. Or from Mark 10, Jesus came not to be served, but to serve. Well, so did my grandparents. And if any of you were at Maxine's funeral, you know, service, that's what Maxine would do. My grandparents are all about getting people together to make a difference. And they taught me at a very young age that a little service goes a long way. I remember when I was younger, helping with the church's activities by working with my grandmother on a sewing desk that my grandfather had built to make pillowcases for the homeless. I remember making PB&Js for the soup kitchen, of course, with the peanut butter on both sides so it doesn't get soggy. Very important. I had so much fun helping to make a water sprinkler tunnel for Vacation Bible School. How many of your children or grandchildren have experienced the joy of running through that tunnel? Each of those things didn't take a lot of time. They weren't hard, but they made big differences in people's lives. My grandparents' service has always been rooted in the church. They really walk their faith and wholeheartedly serve their neighbors because they know that a little service goes a long way. I think it's fitting that my grandparents chose this church to attend because you also understand that a little service goes a long way. You open up the Ark to provide housing for people with no home. You run blood drives, provide beds for kids and pillowcases, I know because I helped make them. Support food banks and collect school supplies for local children, and so much more. I also heard about a project that you all did back in October where you worked with another church to pack supplemented rice. It was packed in individual baggies and assembled in 35-pound boxes to be distributed to underprivileged communities around the world. After working on that project, my grandfather, Tom, hi Nico, actually brought one of those packs of rice to Thanksgiving to help our family understand the difference between the meal we were having and the meal that he was helping to provide for other people. Just imagine all of the good that was accomplished by that one day of service. Your rice is going to make such a big difference in people's lives. That little bit of service went a long way. None of that is hard. Packing rice, opening the doors of the Ark, collecting school supplies. It's not hard work, but it makes a big difference in the lives of others. This church personifies the assertion that a little bit of service goes a long way. You really know how to do service. The reason I am here talking to you today is because I also understand the value of helping others and that a little service goes a long way. Many of you know that because you've supported many of my activities. Just last year, you helped me host the Maranatha Band, a Dominican praise band that we called the loudest Christians ever. And they really lived up to that name. All of you were so much fun to work with, and the concert was a huge success. So let's give yourselves a round of applause. I wanted to come here to thank you for encouraging me and supporting my service work. Since my grandparents taught me the power of service with support for people like you, I've done a lot to serve my community. All of my volunteering has showed me firsthand that a little service goes a long way. I volunteered nearly 4,000 hours in high school alone. I helped with community events, church programs, and I even worked with the Pennsylvania State Police to run a leadership program for youth in our area. But I think my service is best illustrated by the 3 nonprofits that I have started. I was a co-founder in my first nonprofit called Cul-de-sac Concerts. We raised over $50,000 for local food banks during COVID by running a concert in a different cul-de-sac each week. Due to social distancing, we wouldn't tell anyone where we were performing. We would put on these concerts with like 10 people in the live audience. But we streamed these concerts and attracted over 30,000 people online each week. Not only did we help feed people with serious unexpected food insecurity, but we gave purpose to hundreds of musicians and gave hope to our community. All I really had to do was plug in a few microphones, sing a song here and there, and talk with some businesses to get sponsorships. So my work was easy, but it made a huge impact on the food insecurity within my area. I got to be there as we delivered the checks for thousands of dollars to the food banks each week. And by their reaction, I could see how much of a difference we were making. My little bit of service went a long way. The second nonprofit I started was to charter my Boy Scout troop. I'm a Eagle Scout in Troop 19 in Marshallton, PA. And a couple years ago, as I was working toward my Eagle rank, the United Methodist Church nationally determined that they could no longer charter Scout troops. And without a charter, my troop was at risk of getting shut down. And our partnership with the Marshallton United Methodist Church was at risk of ending, a partnership that had been in place for over 80 years. But the church still wanted to support our troop and provide a space for us to meet, but they could no longer serve as our charter. To save my troop and keep scouting alive for hundreds of my fellow scouts, I started a nonprofit called Golden that now charters my scout troop and a few others. With my nonprofit as the charter, the church still gives us a space to meet so we can continue our 80-year relationship with the Marshallton United Methodist Church. Our new relationship has been so successful that we created a website to help other troops learn how to start their own charter organization. We're also starting a girls' troop in West Grove, Pennsylvania, where there are no girls' troops, so we can serve more people in our community. We also got a land grant to build a Boy Scout camp in Westchester, so scouts from all around the area can have a place to learn leadership. As little projects here and there, none of this was very hard. A form here, an agreement there, and a couple meetings with various boards, but our impact has been tremendous. A little service goes a long way. I get so motivated by our success, and I know these projects are successful when they take on a life of their own. I started these organizations, but it never ends with just me. Others get excited about what people are accomplishing and jump in to push it to the next level. My third nonprofit is called SERVE. It stands for Students Engaged in Relief Volunteering. I started SERVE out of concern for mental health, how out of place each of us felt when COVID restrictions were lifted. We were told that everything could go back to normal, but none of us felt normal. We felt lonely, depressed, isolated. In fact, when one of my classmates first heard about my organization, he was sitting in a hospital bed recovering from an eating disorder. He needed to escape the isolation that he had been feeling for so long. So I talked with some doctors who explained that the best way to get out of your own loneliness is to go do something for others. So that's exactly what we did. Through SERVE, I have been running trips to the Dominican Republic to serve the impoverished villages within the sugarcane fields. And these villages are called bateys, and they house the migrant workers who cut and take care and harvest all of the sugarcane in all of those fields by hand. Our team works on construction projects, provides medical care, and distributes food within the sugarcane fields. And in just 1 week in January, my group of 20 volunteers partnered with a mission in Connecticut to provide medical care to over 2,000 people, prayed with over 500 families as we brought them food, moved over 12,000 pounds of cinder blocks and over 70,000 pounds of rice to serve the migrant workers and their families in these fields. I'm just doing the same thing I saw my grandparents do. Walk by faith and helping my neighbors. I just draw my definition of neighbors a little wider. I want to talk more about that rice. We moved a lot of rice as we distributed it to the families living in the bateys. Every day, after working on construction projects or medical clinics, we would go to a different batey and carry 35-pound boxes of rice and some other food to every home in the Batey. The food we provided would feed that family for about 2 months. On this trip in January, I was distributing food in one of my favorite Bateys, Batey 50. I noticed a name printed on the side of the box. It said manna rice. Manna. That's the miracle food for the Israelites, was now the brand for this miracle rice for the Bateys in the Dominican Republic. Manna. And I knew I'd recognize that name from somewhere, but I couldn't tell from where. So I asked one of our leaders where the rice came from, and he said, "Oh, some church in southeastern Pennsylvania packed it back in October and got it shipped down here." Manna. That was the rice that my grandfather brought to Thanksgiving. That means that your church packed the rice that I got to deliver in these impoverished villages. Ever wonder if God's hand is actually touching your life? This was a real God moment. You packed the rice that I distributed. You did something so simple. Pack some rice in baggies. I did something so simple. I carried some boxes of rice to homes in the Bateys. Together, in just 1 week in January, our little bits of service came together to feed nearly 500 families for months at a time. Your day of service and my work in the Dominican, your peanut butter and my jelly, is going to feed thousands of people for months at a time. A little bit of service goes a long way. I'm always amazed at how little actions can accomplish so much. Others joining in can take an impactful project and make it life-changing. I want to tell you a story from the Dominican Republic that shows the impact of getting others involved. Pictured here on the screen is a man named Graviel. Graviel was born in the sugarcane fields to Haitian immigrant parents. When he was about 6 years old, he took his normal 3-hour walk home from school, and when he got home, he realized that there was no food in the house. So, as many people in the Bateys do, he hopped up on a sugarcane cart and grabbed a piece of sugarcane to snack on. The cart started to move, and Graviel got caught up underneath it. The next day, he woke up in a hospital with only one leg. Graviel hobbled around on crutches for 16 years before he was able to get a prosthetic leg. The leg completely changed his life in ways that you couldn't imagine. Realizing the value of a prosthetic leg and realizing that there are literally millions of people in the Dominican Republic who are amputees, Graviel forged his way out of the sugarcane fields and is now building a prosthetic clinic to provide millions of prosthetics to millions of people for free. What I find most amazing is that I get to be one of those people who help him build this prosthetics clinic, being one person in a line of 50 moving cinder blocks to build the clinic. To me, being in that line seems minuscule, but to Graviel, each block is a step toward changing the lives of millions. For the past 5 or 6 years, Graviel has been doing mobile clinics and has fitted about 200 people with prosthetics that way. Recently, I got an email from Graviel saying that he held his first prosthetic fitting in the actual building that we are building for this clinic. So now he has a home base to be able to provide, construct, mold prosthetics for people who need them. My little bit of service, combined with his unstoppable drive, is going a very long way. Graviel is using old prosthetics and remolding them to fit each patient with a leg. But some of his patients are missing an arm. So he's developed a way to 3D print prosthetic arms that can open and close to hold things. Wait, hold on. 3D printing? That doesn't sound easy. But Graviel didn't do this alone. Someone donated a 3D printer, someone else came in to program it, someone else taught Graviel how to print, and someone else helped him complete his first print. To fit his patients with arms and legs, everyone's little bit of service went a long way. I love serving in the Dominican Republic and right here in my own community because I know that I'm helping others. I know that I'm changing people's lives. But what I realized recently is that my work is changing my life too. I want to tell you a story about these 2 young girls that I met in the Dominican Republic this January, Francesca and Esperanza. I hung out with them the entire week while serving on the construction team, and I learned so much about them, their families, and their lives. But toward the end of the week, they started using a word that I didn't understand. The word was recuerdas. Now, I speak Spanish, but not that much, so I didn't understand what these girls were trying to say. But they kept saying it, recuerdas. So I pulled in Jose, he's one of our translators, to help me understand what they were trying to tell me. And he explained that the word they were using was recordar, which means to remember. The girls were asking if I would remember them. Of all the things in the world they could want, food, water, clothes, education, a fix to their leaky roof, what they wanted the most was to be remembered. Remember me. That's the same heartfelt plea that the thief hanging on the cross next to Jesus expressed as they were both being crucified. In Luke 23:42, he says, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." It was a profound moment of recognition where a man, in his final moments, turned his thoughts to God, acknowledging Jesus as the Messiah and affirming the reality of heaven. This plea to be remembered resonates deeply with my experience in the Dominican Republic, especially with Francesca and Esperanza. In their simple quest for me to remember them, recuerdas, turned my thoughts not just to their needs, but to the broader divine call to serve and connect with others. Their desire to be remembered was not just about recognition. It was about being seen, valued, and loved, much like the thief's plea to Jesus. Just as the thief's words moved Jesus to promise him a place in paradise, Francesca and Esperanza's words moved me to reflect on the power of service. They reminded me that in serving others, we are not just meeting immediate needs, but acknowledging the intrinsic worth and dignity of each person. Their simple request, "Remember me," became a divine invitation to see the face of God in everyone we serve. Service, as my grandparents taught me, is about those small, consistent acts that collectively make a significant impact. It's about the rice packed in Pennsylvania that feeds the families in the Dominican Republic, and the cinder blocks lifted one by one to build a hospital, and the moments spent listening to and simply remembering the names of those we meet along the way. Thoughts to God and embracing the call to serve, we find that our burdens are lightened, our hearts are filled, and our lives are transformed. Just as Jesus remembered the thief, let us remember Francesca and Esperanza and all those we serve, knowing that our small acts of kindness and service reflect God's love, and our little bit of service goes a long way. So today, I encourage each and every one of you to go out and serve the world. It may seem like a small act to you, but to someone else, you are changing their lives. By making some peanut butter and jellies, or helping to pack the manna rice that you may not know where it's going, or being one person in a line of 50 to move cinder blocks, vacation Bible school, or one page of a coloring book at a time, go show the world that a little service goes a long way. As you know, the youth here at Jarrettown are doing a little bit of service today. They're hosting a pancake breakfast at Fellowship Hall as a fundraiser for their upcoming trip. Please join us at the breakfast as my guest and support the youth group and enjoy some pancakes. While you're enjoying the pancakes, we will show an award-winning short documentary of my team's service trip from earlier this year. So, you can support the youth group and watch an award-winning film all while eating pancakes. After all, service isn't the only thing that goes a long way. Thank you.